Good morning and welcome to Peace Out, where we are all learning together to peace out. And I know just from yesterday to today, all of my little problems have changed. They're new ones, and I still have the old ones too. Some of the old ones are okay. Just all these opportunities. I am choosing to look at all those things as opportunities to push that let's trust God button. I'm going to trust God button. Let's just trust God button. Here it is, God. I'm giving you my request with Thanksgiving. Still focusing on giving thanks and being thankful. That's not just a November thing, y'all. That's like an all year, all day, every day, all year long thing, right? All lifelong thing is just to continue to be thankful for what God has done. Continuing to be thankful that He saved us, He's redeemed us, He's not going to leave us. That's a big one for me. I talk about that so much in my devotion for caregivers blog. It's just, He's not going to leave us. And that is, if we can't find anything else to be thankful for, we can start with the most basic. He loves us. He is with us. He wants to spend time with us, and He is passionately pursuing us, even if we don't see it, even when we don't feel it, even when we think life is falling apart. All we have to do is fall into His arms. We want to be thankful for everything we can. And sometimes you gotta just, sometimes it comes easy. Sometimes it comes harder. Sometimes we completely miss it, like some guys in our story today, right? Today I talk about this because I wanted to go back to the theme of Thanksgiving today. And I thought of the 10 lepers. It's in the story in Luke 17. And the 10 lepers, it says, Jesus went through Samaria again. We have the story is it Luke chapter 4, I think? John chapter 4, I guess. How He went through Samaria. He said, I have to go through Samaria. And He went through Samaria just to talk to the woman at the well, who we never even got her name. And yet we have that story that He went through a place. The Jews would go all the way around Samaria, but here we are in chapter 17 of Luke, and He's going through Samaria again, right? And we also have, I'll save that for tomorrow. Okay, anyway, so it happened that as he was going to Jerusalem, He passed through the middle of Samaria and Galilee. He went right through the middle. And the Jews would literally walk around Samaria and go miles out of their way to keep from going through Samaria. That's how despised it was, right? And so as He was going through a village, it says 10 lepers came out, and they stood afar off because they were not allowed to come in. When it was determined that you had leprosy, you immediately were separated from your family, from your friends, from society, from your community. And they actually had leper colonies where the lepers all lived together because they couldn't catch it from each other. They already had it, right? And if they got even close, they had to start crying out, unclean, unclean, so they could warn people, don't come close. You can't come close to me. It was a very horrible disease, very contagious. It would basically rot your body while you were still alive, right? Until you would lose digits and things like that. But they were separate, and these 10 lepers were afar off. They stayed the legal distance, right? But they lifted up their voices and began to cry out, Jesus, teacher or master, have mercy on us. They didn't even ask for healing specifically. They just said, see me. Jesus, do you see me? Because nobody else sees me. Nobody else accepts me. Nobody else will have me over for dinner. Nobody else will fellowship with me. And He says, Jesus, do you see us? These 10 lepers. And when Jesus saw them, He said, go show yourselves to the priest. And they went. And as they went to obey that simple command, because it wasn't unusual for the lepers to show themselves to the priest, because they had to show themselves to be declared unclean. The priest had to declare them unclean, right? And so they would go to the priest, and the priest would say, yes, it's leprosy. And I think there was this whole big old long thing. You can go back to Leviticus, and they had to wait so many days and see if this little white spot on their skin was still there, or if it got bigger, or if it got smaller. They would have to wait another 10 days, something like that. It was this whole ritual you had to do back then to make sure it was leprosy before the priest declared it. But the priest was the one who declared it, not the doctor. And Luke was the doctor, by the way, that's writing this, right? But he said, go show yourself to the priest. And as they started going to the priest, which was it wasn't an unusual request, right? But it might have been an odd time to do it. And so they turned to go show themselves to the priest. And as they obeyed, as they went, as they moved toward what Jesus had told them to do, they were cleansed. Can you imagine walking down that road and starting to go, you know what, that itchy spot's not itching anymore. And looking at your fingers and going, you know what, doesn't look as white as, does my hand look, do I look fat? No, my hand looks, or looking at the other one and going, you know, your ear doesn't look like it has leprosy anymore. That's kind of weird. And as they went, they progressively got better. So that by the time they got to the priest, they were completely healed, because the priest was the one that had, according to the law in Leviticus, had to declare them clean. What an amazing story just in itself. But here's the next part. So when one of them, when he saw that he was healed, he returned, and with a loud voice, he glorified God. Just as loud as he cried out, Jesus, have mercy on me, he began to glorify God, fell on his face at Jesus' feet, and gave him thanks. And then Luke puts this little thing in there. See, Luke was into the details. He was the doctor. He wasn't even, he wasn't one of the disciples, right? Was he one of the disciples? He might have been. Anyway, but he's a doctor, and he's not going to miss, I have to go back and say the name of the 12 of them in my head, right? But he told it from a different perspective, because he was a doctor, and he got those little details. Now, this is a doctor telling a story about lepers who were healed of a disease that couldn't be healed, and this leper is coming back to tell Jesus. And so Luke adds this one little thing. He was a Samaritan. And it's not in italics, and there's no sarcasm there, and there's no wonder in the words, because it's just black and white text. But he goes, he was a Samaritan. He was a Samaritan. The one of the 10 that Jesus healed was a Samaritan. And then Jesus says this. He says, weren't there 10 of you that were healed? Weren't 10 of you cleansed of this? Where's the other 9? He says, were there not any found who returned to give glory to God except this foreigner? And then he says again, because he called him a foreigner, because he's a Samaritan, right? And he says, arise, go your way, your faith has made you well. But it was like Jesus was shocked, even though Jesus already knew it was going to happen, right? But it was like, he's like, it's a foreigner that came back to give thanks? Where are the 9? Where are they? A Samaritan of all people? The Samaritan was thankful, right? It's like everybody's shocked. He's a Samaritan, but he came back and he gave thanks and he glorified God for his healing in his body. This was not a minor thing. It wasn't like, there's no minor healings, by the way, but it wasn't like I have a headache and I prayed and it went away. Thank God. That's a wonderful thing if you got a headache. But this was a life-changing, life-altering, huge, big difference, because now he can come back to community. He can go home to his family. So much more was restored in this healing than just a physical healing. And the just doesn't mean it wasn't big. This was a huge healing. This was a major thing. It was a major life change. He was going to have to adjust back to societal norms because he's been away from them, because he couldn't enjoy a meal with his family. And now he can go home and go, look, God healed me. Let's have supper. Let's roast a lamb or a pig or something. You know, it wouldn't have been a pig because they were Jewish, right? Well, he was a Samaritan. Anyway, so he's like, his whole life was restored. When Jesus does a work in our lives, it touches more than just one area. It changes things in our future. It changes our presence. It changed his present right then. And he realized that change. The Samaritan realized that change. The other 9 were unthankful. That doesn't mean they didn't go, hey, this is great. And their life changed too. But this man, this Samaritan, God forbid, right, took the time to come back and give thanks to Jesus. And my lesson from this is, can we just remember to give him thanks for all these things? Because when he touches our heart, even if it looks like a little thing, and it's easy to read in 5 minutes, right? 3 minutes, 2 minutes, you read these few verses, not even 10 verses, right? You could about 8 verses in just a few seconds and go, wow, that's amazing. But this was life altering. And when God touches our hearts, it is life altering. It sets us on a path of spiritual success going forward. When we know he touched us, so when you know he's done something, whether he helped you figure out a financial thing or a relationship thing, or help you find a job or get a new job or get out of a bad job you didn't want to do, whatever it is, it's like it continues because it's going to build on that. And we just want to stop and give him thanks. Now this Samaritan gave him thanks for being cleansed. Did he go into a long detail? Thank you that I can go home to my family now. Thank you for that I'm going to go home for supper. He walked in the door and goes, Daddy's home, baby, I'm here, and he was whole. God, Jesus, when he touches our hearts, it's a whole lot bigger deal than what we see. And so we want to take those moments to just stop every time we know that God intervened in any situation, even if it looks small and when it looks big, we want to just stop and go, thank you so much. And we can use salvation as an experience, as an example, right? We know that when we got saved, it was a wonderful experience. We felt hope. We felt joy. We felt God's presence. We felt accepted. We felt forgiven. Or maybe there's just something in life that came into our soul that we were like, oh, this is awesome. And then as we walk on down the road, we get accustomed to feeling saved. We're saved. I'm just saved. I said that prayer. I'm saved. But when we start building that relationship, but getting saved was a pivotal moment. It's a good time to stop. That's why we can, even today, just stop and go back and say, thank you so much. Because this leper went out of his way to go back and say, thank you for healing me. Thank you for changing my life. And we can do that every single day. Go back and thank you for that point of salvation. Thank you for that relationship that you want to cultivate and maintain with me, God. That's an amazing thing. There's always something to be thankful for. And it's never what we see is never as big as what God did. We see the little stuff. The pain is gone or the leprosy is gone, but it was so much bigger. And when God touches our heart, it's a big deal. And it's okay to go to God and make a big deal out of it. It says he glorified God with a loud voice. He cried out to God with a loud voice. Why shouldn't he glorify God with a loud voice? And it says he fell on his face and his feet as a sign of worship and gave him thanks. And he was a Samaritan. We can do that. Do we feel disgraced? Do we feel like we're never worthy? It's okay. We are worthy. So we want to stop and give him thanks because spiritually speaking, we're a Samaritan. We're not from here. Maybe we don't have a big name in lights and we're not famous and everybody don't know our names and things like that. We are nobody too, right? But when God touches us, it's a big deal. And it's a time to just give him thanks. So today, be thankful for the small stuff because the small stuff you see God do is really big stuff in the kingdom. Have a great day. Peace out. I'll see you again tomorrow.